Daf Pehei Amud Beis, we'll begin Daf Pehei Amud Aleph right at the bottom. Umaytzi B'sar Pesach Mechabur Lechabura Minai. How do we know there's an Isser of taking out the basar of the Korban Pesach from one group to another group? The sign we learned in the Brayso, Loisaytzi Min Habayis Min Habasar Chutza. The Torah says, don't take the meat from the house, don't take it outside the house. Ein li ela mibayis lebayis. I only know that the Isser involves taking out from one house to another house. Chazon Ish says, of course, it doesn't mean necessarily from one house to another house. It's even outside of the house. But because we're discussing now in the latter part of it from one chabura to a chabura, it says from one house to another house. So I only know the Isser ein li ela mibayis lebayis. Mi chabur lechabur minayin. How do I know even from one group to another group, even if it's in the same house? Talmud loymar chutza. It says chutza chutz lachilosa, outside the place of the achila, wherever the achila is. So therefore, even if it's from one chabura to another chabura in the same house, but if they take out of the place of the room of one chabura, then it's also awesome. If a person takes the meat of the Pesach from one group to another one, he's not chayiv until he places it down. It's picked it up, it's put down in the second place. Why is that? It says Hoitzah, and it says by Shabbos, it also says Hoitzah. The malacha of Shabbos is taking out from one rishus to the other. That involves an akir, picking it up, taking it out, and putting it down, placing it down, and putting a hanocha. Similarly, it says that by the Korban Pesach, he's only chayiv until he's not chayiv until he puts it down. He does a hanocha. The Slach says that's as far as Malchus goes, but he says as far as the Isser goes, in this case, it would be also even before he puts it down. But as far as the Chiyuv al Kopanim of Malchus, he's not chayiv ad she'aniach because Hoitzah ksibe b'Shabbos. Ma Shabbos, just like by Shabbos, ad Dovid akir v'hanocha, he's not chayiv until he does an akir and a hanocha. Hachanami ad Dovid akira v'hanocha. He's not chayiv until he does an akira v'hanocha. Mosiv Rabbi Abba Bar Ma'amal Yasakasha. How can you say that? It says by the parim and Nisrofim. So they have the parim that are burnt, and the seirim, the goats that are burnt. These are the special korbanos of Yom Kippur. That if you have the Nisrofim, the parim and Nisrofim, they're taken outside the machna to be burnt. So therefore, if he takes out these things, once he takes these ayus, they used to carry them out with poles, and when the ones that are walking ahead in front, once they leave the chaimus hazara, the wall of the hazara, and the ones in the back have not yet gone out, then the ones that went ahead, so they have a tuma, they're matam begonim, they're tame, even their clothes become tame. And the ones in the back that haven't left, the ones that are further behind that haven't left, they don't have tumas begonim. Now here also it says that they have to take it out, and they have to be taken out to be burnt. And therefore, even though it says that they have to be taken out, we see that the ones that are in front are bimtama even before it's put down, because it says that the ones in the back haven't even left yet. So there's no hanocha. He asked the kasha. He answered, it's talking where literally it's dragging on the ground. Meaning, so therefore it is considered to be on the ground, and therefore there's a hanocha, and therefore it's already considered munach, and therefore it's now metama. Taisa says it doesn't have to be literally that it's dragging on the ground. As long as it's within 3 tvachim of the ground, we say lovud, it's considered to be munach on the ground, it's considered to be munach, and therefore it's a hoitzah, and therefore it's metama the begodim. Zok the Mishnah, Eber she also makes us a limb, part of a limb, a part of an aver, that part of it went outside the mechitz of the boundary. So as we learned before, and there's a psul, it becomes possible the yoitze, chaysech, he cuts the flesh until he gets to the bone. and he removes that flesh, that basar, because it's possible tumah. The kailaf hachamegila parak, then he peels it back until he gets to the joint, and then he cuts it v'chaysach, and he cuts it, and then he cuts the bone away at the joint. Ubin mikdashim, but if we're talking about other mikdashim, then where it's not a korban pesach, or the other mikdashim where there's no iser of shiras hatzem, she'ein boi mishum shiras hatzem, then we say, then within the mikdashim kaifetz bekupetz shein boi mishum shiras hatzem. Then in these mikdashim he chops it off with a cleaver. He chops it off with an axe because there's no iser of shiras hatzem, shein boi mishum shiras hatzem. So therefore he can cut it without having to peel it back. The Mishnah continues, from the inside of the doorway and further in is considered inside. But the inside of the doorway, from the doorway itself towards the outside, is considered outside. The Gemara will discuss the area of the doorway itself, the door jamb itself. But if you have a threshold and you have a door that swings and it closes, so this is the door, this is the outside of the threshold of the door jamb. That's considered like outside. So this is the wall of Yerushalayim, and this is the door that closes. So this outer area over here is like outside of Yerushalayim. The inner area, the area over here, is considered inside Yerushalayim. So if something is beyond this area, it's outside, it's Yaitse. If it's within this side, it's inside Yerushalayim. The Gemara will discuss the area of the doorway itself. What status do we give the doorway itself? So we'll get into detail in the Gemara, but in general terms, the outside of that area is outside, the inside is inside. The windows and the thickness of the walls are considered inside. So if you have the interior of the window, if you have a space of the window, that area inside the window itself, that is considered to be like the inside. And the top of the walls themselves are considered to be like also the inside. So we'll see in the Gemara why there's a chilik between doorways, entranceways, why is a chilik between the top of the walls and the windows. The Gemara will discuss this, so we'll get to it momentarily. Zok the Gemara, this area and the door jamb and the interior area over there, the same criteria we have for Yaitse is as far as Tefillah. So the way Rashi learns it is as follows. If you have, let's say, 9 people in a room, and then you have one person, and the person, if he is outside the area of the outer area of the threshold, if he's on the outer area of the threshold, he's not considered part of the room. He can't be mitzvah from minyan. If he's by the inner area of the threshold, then you could be mitzvah for the minyan. But he argues and he says even a metal barrier does not make a mechitza, does not separate between them, between the Yisrael Avidim Shemaim, and therefore it's not considered a separation, and you could join them. That's why Rashi learns Taisus argues and he says no, as far as being mitzvah to the minyan, then there is a separation, and you can't be mitzvah from the minyan. The criteria over here is the issue is if you have a minyan, and if they're saying kedusha or omen yeshmei rabba, do you have to be in the inner area of the threshold in order to answer, or even can you be outside and answer? And the Rabbi Yehuda Rav says Shubin Levi says no. There we say machitza shabaz is not mafsik. He can be answer even if he is on the other side of it. It seems to be in the Mishnah. You're saying that from the door jamb inside towards the end is inside, which implies that the area of the threshold itself would be the threshold itself would be kachutz, be outside. Amos Sefer, the Sefer says that min agaf v'lachutz kalachutz, that from the agaf l'chutz is outside. Ha agaf asma kalafni, which implies that the agaf itself is considered inside. Or answers like kasha. Kan b'sharei Azora, kan b'sharei Yerushalayim. There's a difference between the gateways of the Azora, coming to the Azora, or Yerushalayim. Why is there a chilek? To Omar, Rabbi Shmuel bar Yitzchak, Mibnei Ma lo niskachu shar Yerushalayim. Why were they Yerushalayim? Why were they not niskachu? Meaning, when we say that Yerushalayim, the agaf, is considered outside, the area of the doorway itself by the gates of Yerushalayim are outside. Why is that? Why were they not niskachu? Why is the doorway itself not considered like the city of Yerushalayim? Why is it not kodesh to be able to eat the kodesh mekalim there? Mipnei shemitzrayim megirim tachtayim, because Mitzrayim have to be sent out of the city, so they cannot be in the city. But they left those areas. These areas were thick areas. The walls were very thick, so the areas within the doorways, these were thick areas. These were thick areas over here. That this area was very thick, and so they had protection over there. They were able to protect themselves from the sun and from the rains, so they left it as an area of chol that the Mitzorim, who had to be outside Yerushalayim, they weren't in the Mekadosh, so it's considered outside, that they can take protection, take shelter in these areas. All the gateways, all the entranceways of the Azora, however, we're saying, were niskachim, and therefore the agaf by the Shari Azora, the area of the agaf, is considered lifnim, except for Shar Nikonar, except for the entranceway Shar Nikonar, where that entranceway was not niskadish. Why is that? Because the Mitzrayim have to, when they have to have their tahara, when they are now coming to be matar themselves, and they have to stand there and put in the behinas yadam, the thumbs of their hands, so that the kohen can apply the blood of the korbanos to the thumbs. Why is that? Because the Mitzrayim, he at that point when he needs to have his tahara, then he cannot come in to the Azora. He already at that stage can come into the city, but he can't come into the Azora. He has to be out until he has his kapara, his mechusar kapara with the korbanos. He can't come into the Azora. So they were not mekadesh the shar and the konar. So it's considered not part of the Azora. So he's not standing in the Azora. He sticks in his thumbs into the Azora, which is not considered coming into the Azora. It's not considered like he entered the Azora. And the kohen can apply the dam, the blood, to his thumbs and complete the tahara. So therefore, they had to leave it chol. Frank the Marsha, well, why not they make it kodesh and have him stand outside the gate, stick his thumbs into the doorway, into the area of the door jamb, and then apply the dam over there? Why say that the shar should be chol, should be not chol, but shmach not be kodesh with the azara? And why, therefore, allow him to come in there and stick his hands into the Azora? Why not have him stand outside the gate and stick his thumbs into the doorway? The answer is because he has to be Oimed Lifnei Hashem. So therefore, it has to be he's standing already in the gateway, putting his thumbs into the Azora. The Mishnah said the windows and the thickness of the wall are considered like lifnim, like inside. He says the rooftops and the second stories and the upper stories did not have the kedusha. So therefore, for instance, the rooftop of the heichal did not have the kedusha of the heichal. The ulam of the rooftop of the ulam did not have the kedusha of the ulam. That's what we're assuming at this point, and we'll see. We'll find this as we get further in the Gemara. So the rooftops and the second stories, they did not have the kedusha of the area beneath them. Practically more ini. How can you say that? Valmar Rav Mishum Rabbi Chia said the kazeis pischova halela pakigra. He said the sound of the commotion by the Pesach when they had the people eating the chaburas, eating kazayits of the bosa, and the singing of the Hallel, the sound was so loud, and they had all the different chaburas, and each one they had to register for a chabura. They had to divide up and see that there was a kazayits for each person, and divide up the meat for each person, and the commotion of that and the sound of the Hallel, so to speak, that it cracked open the rooftops. The sound was so loud. So it's just a mashal guzma that it cracked open the rooftops. So my love, the achli begram. So doesn't that mean that it cracked the rooftops? Doesn't mean that they were there on the rooftops. So doesn't that mean that they were eating on the rooftops? Now we see that they were eating. If they were eating on the rooftops, they had to eat the Korban Pesach in Yerushalayim. It had to be eaten in Yerushalayim. So doesn't that show you that the rooftops of Yerushalayim had the kedusha of Yerushalayim, and they could eat the korbanos? Moran says, "Lo achle ba'ara, va'amra be'igra." No, they ate it below. The rooftops, I'll tell you, did not have the kedusha of Yerushalayim. They ate it, therefore, dafke below. But they went, after they ate, they went up to the rooftop to say the Hallel. As the Marshal explains, it was very, very crowded, so they went up to the rooftops to be able to say the Hallel on the rooftop. How can you say that they ate and then they went to say the Hallel? We learned in the Mishnah, it says that you don't conclude the Suda after the Korban Pesach with Avikaimen. So what does Avikaimen mean? And Rav says, there's different interpretations, but Rav says, Omar Rav, he says it means Shelo Yakru Mechabur Lechabur. There's different interpretations, but Rav says what it means is that he learns you can't, after eating the Korban Pesach, you can't now go to another place, and you can't now go and eat in another place. Afikoimen, he learns from the lashon of afikum anaychu. Take out your kelim and go to another place. So what it means is that after you eat the Korban Pesach, that you can't go and eat anything else that in a different location. Now that's a Isser D'Rabbanan, that we say that they made this takona so that you don't come to eat the Korban Pesach in two different places. So therefore, in any event, how can they go ahead and eat here and then go to another place and go to the rooftop to say the Hallel? More answers like kasha, it's not a kasha, kan b'shas achila, kan shalai b'shas achila. When they're eating the meal, they can't go to another place. But when they finish the meal, and then to say the Hallel and go say the Hallel in a different place, there you could. So we'll continue this throughout the next element to this discussion if the rooftops have kedusha or not.